Welcome, everyone. Great to see so many people. Welcome to Connecticut Energy Network's information session on the DEEP, Bureau of Energy and Technology Policy, featuring Deputy Commissioner Vicki Hackett and several members of her staff, whose names you see here: Jamie Flynn, Julia Dumaine, and Michael Lee. This is part of a series of information sessions that the Connecticut Energy Network has been doing on issues and institutions relevant to Connecticut's transition to clean energy. Certainly one of the most important of those institutions is DEEP, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and specifically the Bureau of Energy and Technology Policy. Anyone even casually following this space in recent days, recent months, knows that this group has been incredibly active, and it's really actually remarkable that they are able to take time to give this session this morning in the middle of everything that is going on right now. It's actually amazing they have time to eat and sleep, but so we're really appreciative that that Vicki Hackett and her team are taking time so that we can really get a better understanding of DEEP and what this team is doing. And it's so important to our transition to a clean energy economy. Many people, I'm sure many on this call today, know DEEP, or at least knew DEEP, but I think for most of us, the DEEP that we knew is probably quite different than the one we're seeing today. A lot of the faces have changed, a lot of the priorities have changed. So I'm not going to extend my introduction any more than to introduce Vicki Hackett, the Deputy Commissioner of the Bureau of Energy and Technology Policy. So thank you again, Vicki, for taking time to be with us and present DEEP and your team.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you also, Patrice and Bernie, for having us here today. And I also want to thank the audience for joining us, taking the time out of your day to join us today. I'm Vicki Hackett. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Energy at the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. And so, of course, right before this started, my laptop completely died. I got the black screen of death. So I am using my phone. And I am very lucky that I had emailed my presentation to my team members. And so Julia Dumaine is going to go through the slides for me. And I'll just tell you up front that if there are any funny noises outside, my dog will bark, Archie. So if you hear Archie, I'll try to keep him quiet, but those things, during a pandemic, we're all facing similar challenges, I think. So I've got some of my colleagues here with me today. And actually, I think we have quite a few of our team members in the audience as well. But with me presenting today are Mike Lee, who's the Bureau Chief for the Bureau of Energy and Technology Policy, which we use the acronym BETP. At DEEP. So Mike will be talking with you later about the conservation and load management plan and the exciting work that we're doing there. We also have one of our attorneys, Jamie Flynn, who will be presenting after me on the Transportation Climate Initiative. And we have Associate Economist Julia Dumaine, who will be talking with you about our Integrated Resources Plan that is out in draft right now and scheduled to go final soon. So Mike and I started in our roles leading the Bureau of Energy and Technology Policy within a couple of weeks of each other back in August of 2019. Between us, we have a range of experience in energy. Mike at both the state and federal level, and he can tell you more about that, while my experience is all at the state level. I started my energy career as an attorney at the Office of Consumer Counsel for many years in 2006. Until DEEP Commissioner Katie Dykes hired me as her managing counsel at PURA. I followed her then from PURA to DEEP when she became the commissioner of DEEP, and initially as her chief of staff, and then in this role as the deputy commissioner. So I've been doing energy work in Connecticut for quite some time in various capacities. Since Mike and I started in these roles, we've been really focused on building our team and setting up an organizational structure that really reflects our missions and our priorities. When Commissioner Dykes first became commissioner in 2019, she put in place two lenses through which we need to view all of our work at DEEP across the agency. So climate and equity. So because of all of the work at DEEP was to be seen through the climate lens, Commissioner Dykes moved the climate office that had been within BETP to the DEEP Commissioner's office so that it could more effectively engage with all parts of the agency. So Julia, if you would go to slide 3. Next one, please. Thank you. Oh, before that, the org chart. There we go. So Mike and I restructured BETP after the commissioner moved the climate office by organizing it into 2 offices. So we have the Office of Energy Supply and Infrastructure and the Office of Building and Transportation Decarbonization. And I'm going to walk you through the org chart and what our priorities are for each work group currently within that org chart. And I'm not going to touch on everything. We really do a vast variety of work, but I'll try to hit on something for each work group. One thing that I think is really great about BETP is that our org chart work groups are somewhat fluid and with people belonging often to more than one group. And this allows us to really be efficient and to focus resources where they're needed at any given time. And I also want to point out that not included in this org chart is our amazing BETP legal team. They're technically part of the Office of the Commissioner, but they're assigned specifically to work with us and are led by our Energy Legal Office Director, Kirsten Rigney. Our legal team are also technical experts in the work that they do, as you'll see during the TCI presentation by Jamie Flynn shortly. So I'll start with the Office of Energy Supply and Infrastructure, which is led by Office Director Lauren Savage. This office handles really the bulk of our engagement with the regional energy markets, and they are currently leading the process for the New England Governor's Energy Vision process on behalf of Connecticut. So in October of 2020, the 6 New England states released a vision statement outlining a vision for a clean, affordable, and reliable 21st century regional electric grid, recognizing the need for change at our independent system operator, ISO New England, in 3 segments of our shared energy system: the wholesale electric market design, transmission system planning, and ISO New England's governance structure. So the New England states committed to engaging in a collaborative and open process supported by NESCO, the New England States Committee on Electricity, to advance those principles discussed in the vision statement. And as part of this effort, the New England states have been hosting a series of online technical forums to discuss those issues presented in the statement. I think we have 1 technical conference left focused on environmental justice, and I think that's going to be scheduled in the second half of March. This process has, I've been doing energy, as I said, since 2006 in Connecticut, and I've never really seen, I've seen a lot of back and forth on it with respect to issues at ISO. I've never seen the states come together in quite this way and really work so hard in, rowing in the same direction toward change. And I think it's really encouraging. And with the new federal administration, I think we're making a lot of headway there to really look at regional market reform, which is a significant priority of ours. So also within this team, I'll work through the different org chart bubbles here. The renewables team handles our procurements. So for example, offshore wind procurements, grid scale solar, fuel cell procurements. They also work in the shared clean energy facility proceedings and the solar tariff proceedings, for example, at PURA. They also led Julia Domain, who you're going to hear from soon, is in this group and led the Integrated Resources Plan on behalf of BETP. One of the priorities coming up for this team is to engage with the other branches of DEEP on a solar siting process that we're getting ready to launch, which will bring developers, community groups, environmental organizations, public officials, anyone with an interest in solar siting we want to bring into one process to develop best practices for solar siting so that we can make things more sort of transparent and predictable for developers while still protecting our natural resources and making sure that we're considering the preferences of our local communities, including from an environmental justice perspective, our rural communities, and so forth. So that's something that we're getting ready to launch very soon. It came out of our IRP process that Julia will be talking about, and we're really really excited to get that started. Then we have here our infrastructure compliance and modeling group. They focus on electric and gas infrastructure. So, this would be the group that will be working on transmission issues at ISO New England, for example. Gas infrastructure, that will be part of the focus of our upcoming comprehensive energy strategy, which we're getting ready to also launch, another priority for this year. They also work on microgrids, which in Public Act 20-5, the microgrid statute was expanded to include resilience projects. So this group will be working very closely with Dr. Rebecca French from our climate office on implementing that program. They also appear in PURA's grid mod proceedings and in cases related to natural gas infrastructure. The modeling and compliance part of this group focuses on RGGI implementation and greenhouse gas accounting, which is something that we're looking at the way that we do, the methodology that we have for greenhouse gas accounting. And then the grants group here handles things like our SEP funding and weatherization assistance, the grant process. I expect they're about to get pretty busy because we're looking at potentially very significant increases in federal funding for clean energy initiatives, and I'm sure many of you have heard about. So, we're really excited about that and all the potential that comes with that. So that is our Office of Energy Supply and Infrastructure. And so now we'll talk about our Office of Building and Transportation Decarbonization. And Elaine Ulrich is our office director of that office. I believe she's on this in this group with us today. So we'll start with the buildings team. The buildings team oversees the conservation and load management program, which is a significant part of the work that we do at DEEP, and something we've been very active managers of that program. Mike is going to present on this, so but I'll just say at a high level that we're exploring ways to support our energy efficiency workforce while finding also innovative approaches to overcome barriers to weatherization and efficiency for Connecticut's homes and businesses. Energy efficiency is such a great story because, we have workforce development and opportunities. It provides a way to reduce bills for people and for businesses, and it stimulates the economy. And it reduces load. And so it's a real resource, with respect to our electric grid. So we have a variety of initiatives underway within the CNLM process, including an equitable energy efficiency proceeding. And also this is the year for our 3-year planning process. So typically, can you all still hear me? Just making sure.
Yes.
Okay. So typically, the bulk of the planning for the CNLM plan happens within the 3-year planning process. Those who have been involved since Mike and I joined in 2019 will know that we don't really wait for those 3-year planning processes to make changes to the CNLM plan. And in fact, I believe we're expecting to release our 2021 plan update early next week. So, the draft is already out, and Mike will talk through some of the exciting changes that we made in there. The buildings team also oversees the weatherization assistance program, which provides invaluable services to residents with low income. We also have a low income program within the CNLM plans. And finally, our building codes team is focusing on the high performance building standards for state buildings. The buildings team will be coordinating with our infrastructure team on the supply side to launch the comprehensive energy strategy, probably again within the next month. And this year's CES will really focus on issues related to building decarbonization, such as renewable thermal technologies and mechanisms. And we're looking closely at the GC3 report and recommendations and how we can incorporate many of those recommendations into our GC3 process. So next we have our Lead by Example team. And the work of our Lead by Example team had received very significant priority early in the Lamont administration, Governor Lamont's administration, because it was the focus of Executive Order number 1, which requires state agencies to advance environmental leadership and save money for taxpayers by meeting greenhouse gas reduction targets of 45% below 2001 levels, waste reduction target of 25% from a 2020 baseline, and water reduction target of 10% below a 2020 baseline. So state agencies must create sustainability performance plans. In 2019, we made significant progress toward laying the groundwork for expanded Lead by Example initiatives in the future in 2019 and 2020. Governance structures were established, baseline data was collected, and financing and project strategies were developed. Agencies identified a wide variety of goals and projects in their sustainability performance plans, and they're being implemented at their respective agencies and shared on the Greener Gov CT site. We're continuing to collect data, to create the baseline, and the steering committee is assessing the need for additional strategies to meet more stringent targets than those required by EO1. The transportation group, this group has been very, very busy, and this is such an area of rapid growth, right? So the transportation group were the authors of Connecticut's electric vehicle roadmap. That was one of our first projects after Mike and I started, was really digging in on that electric vehicle roadmap, which we're really proud of. It's the guiding policy document for the state of Connecticut on the rollout of electric vehicles statewide. For 2021, our priorities for this group include working on the Transportation Climate Initiative, which you're going to hear more about from Jamie, as well as engaging in a variety of processes to implement the EV roadmap. And let's see, I think that gets us through the org chart. If you want to go to the next slide, Julia.
Deputy Commissioner, while you're switching slides, when you use an acronym or a set of initials, can you sort of spell it out? Because this is the 101 session.
I'm sorry, I thought I must have missed an acronym or two. So I will try to watch the acronym speak. Okay, so we do have a few principles that are sort of work streams that go across our bureau. And the first is equity and energy justice, and for equity work and affordability. So all of our work is really viewed through this lens. How do we do things as affordably as possible, but also how are we considering energy justice? How are we considering equity in all of the work that we're doing? And in this regard, we're sort of building the plane while we're flying it. So one thing that we're doing currently, because we had a variety of ways that we were looking at energy equity, and we realized that we needed to sort of bring it all together and centralize it in order to really institutionalize it. So we're creating in BETP an energy equity team. So they'll have several tasks. The first task will be to create an energy equity definition in the context of our work and in connection with our work with the Climate Office and our environmental justice team at DEEP. They'll be adapting the racial equity toolkit from the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, which is a really great resource that I recommend that people refer to. It's GARE is the acronym, but it's the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. And we'll be developing the equity checklist to pair with a toolkit for application to BETP's, our bureau's processes, communications and outreach, and policymaking. And we're also asking this group to advise and assist management in creating an internal climate within our group that advances equity, diversity, and inclusion in the workplace, including, but not limited to, identifying inclusive approaches to recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce, and helping us to foster an inclusive and equitable work culture in conjunction with deep activities and processes agency-wide. So I'm really excited about this. It'll help us bring all of our, centralize all of our equity work, and also be sure that we're applying it consistently across the board in all of our areas of work. We also, so one of those particular areas of equity work is within the CNLM plan. We have what we're internally calling our E3 proceedings, or equitable energy efficiency proceeding. And the main goals of that, and I'm not sure if Mike's going to touch on it a little bit in his presentation on the CNLM plan, but the main goals of that are to develop metrics and tracking mechanisms to really ensure that that our program is reaching everybody who's contributing to it, right? Because all ratepayers contribute to the funding for the program. And we know that certain, that there are barriers to participation for people who have health and safety barriers in their home, for example, that are expensive often to overcome and prevent us from installing energy efficiency measures. And, you know, the barrier of cost, upfront cost for many people, and also the barrier if you're a renter and have a landlord, and the landlord doesn't want to engage with the programs, but you know, the renter is paying the energy bill and not able to reap the benefits of the program. So those are things that we're very, very actively working on at the moment, and that we're working on sort of separately, but also within the E3 proceeding. And then another sort of approach for the equity and energy justice is we recently hosted we called it a deep power hour. And what we did is, we did outreach through grassroots organizations and environmental justice organizations. And we hosted an evening session. Julia Dumaine, who's going to talk to you soon about the IRP, really put it together. She with a team of others put together a flyer, and they had it printed in Spanish as well, or translated to Spanish, and circulated it very widely. And we ended up getting a group of participants who don't normally appear before us. So we had an evening proceeding. We kept it pretty short. It was an hour. We kept the presentation very short and more high level. And then we just engaged in a Q&A. And it was really, I have to say, it was really rewarding for me as well. And so the premise was that, we were really hearing directly from people instead of them just hearing from us. And we were trying to make what we were doing much more accessible, so we could hear, so people could really sort of tune into it. I think it was a really successful model. We made a lot of contacts with people who have followed up with us since then and want to get more engaged. So I think that's a model that you'll be seeing more of. And then another priority across the Bureau is the clean energy economy and workforce development. So I have been coordinating quite a bit with DECD and with Colin Cooper, our Chief Manufacturing Officer, and Advanced CT and the Connecticut Green Bank in various ways to support our existing clean energy industry in energy efficiency and solar, and look at ways to support and grow those industries, but also looking at how do we really launch other clean energy industries in Connecticut, including offshore wind, electric vehicle charging, energy storage, and hydrogen as we evolve further. So that's been something that's also been a focus across all of our work. And then finally, engagement and outreach. We work really hard, but we don't always tell everybody. It's hard to do the work and also talk about doing the work, right? You have to prioritize it. You have to prioritize doing things like what we're doing right now, coming and hearing from people and having them hear from us, and sort of introducing ourselves so that people know who we are, and hear from us about why we're looking at the things we're looking at and what our focus is. So Julia, next slide, please. I'm going to talk just quickly, I'm sort of running out of time, about legislation and what our legislative priorities are. So first is the governor's climate bill. actually, it's got two parts. It's a climate bill, but it's also a home energy affordability bill. And what this does is it codifies the zero carbon electric supply by 2040 goal that Julia is going to talk about when she talks about the IRP. So we're excited about that. It also provides DEEP with the authority to procure energy efficiency and demand response, additional to what we already have, to reduce load and balance intermittent resources, which we know is going to be so critical as we move toward a zero carbon supply future. And one thing that I'm really excited about in this bill as well is the home energy disclosure requirement. And what that does is it requires property owners who are listing a property for sale or rent to disclose either a home energy label or to disclose 12 months worth of billing, energy billing for that residence. And this will help us to promote transparency for energy costs and affordability. You don't buy a car that doesn't have, you know how efficient your car is when you buy it. You know how efficient your washing machine is when you buy it. And we should know the same thing about a home before we expect people to move in, not knowing how much that they would pay. So we see this as a really important step toward affordability. And it also encourages landlords to participate in our energy efficiency programs, where we have so many things to offer, especially for low income tenants, with very little upfront, if any, upfront costs. So, our doors are open to landlords to come in and get their properties more efficient. And this is a way to sort of encourage the market to reflect what people's desires are as far as having more efficient residents. So next slide, Julia. Thank you. Also very proud of this bill. This is the governor's broadband bill. It would add actually another sort of notch onto our org chart with a telecom and broadband office within BETP. And you can see here what the goals are. I won't spend too much time because we're running out of time here. But it would be, essentially what we're trying to do is coordinate state resources across agencies to be able to partner with municipalities and businesses and try to close the gaps on broadband access, because there's certainly a digital divide that we've all seen sort of dramatically during this time of, sheltering in place and people trying to educate their children from home and so forth. So the main goals are to create a modern mapping process so that we can really see where the gaps in access are, to establish speed standards, and to prepare an annual plan that reflects, progress toward the goal of universal access. And then to streamline processes through Pura for connection to poles and wires, including one-touch make-ready, and also provide for consumer protections. That's kind of the high level on that. Next slide, Julia, please. So I'll talk just quickly about our agency bills. So the first one, very excited about this one, an act increasing representation on the Energy Conservation Management Board. And what we're looking to do there is add 2 members to the EEB, which is 1 member for low income, a low income representative. Right now, we only have 1 residential representative on the EEB. And, there's so much work on the residential side, and we really want to make sure that we're also focusing on ensuring that the programs are equitably distributed among customers with lower income. So I think that's really important. And also very exciting is, adding a member to represent municipalities, because I think it's clear municipalities want to engage with us more. They want to be involved in how we're rolling out the energy efficiency programs, and we want that involvement as well. There's so much that municipalities can bring to the table here. So very excited about that bill. Then we've got an act concerning the solicitation of biogas proposals from anaerobic digestion facilities. So this is also very much a priority of DEEP. Solid waste sent to for disposal at waste to energy facilities or landfills we need to reduce our solid waste, and this is really a way for us to do that. And we know that municipalities are really struggling with this. We're really struggling with it as well, so we see this as an important solution for reducing our waste stream. And then next we have an act concerning energy efficiency standards. Julia Dumaine is also our principal expert on this bill. So if people have questions about this one, she'll be best suited to answer them, but a very exciting bill that would help us to save ratepayers a significant amount of money, $59 million in energy bill costs per year. And this is by establishing state appliance and product energy and water efficiency standards. These haven't been updated in Connecticut since 2011, and the standards included in this bill apply to selected residential and commercial products and are based on common industry standards such as Energy Star, WaterSense, and standards developed and adopted by the California Energy Commission. And these standards have already been adopted by many states and are being considered by other states. And then we have, let's see, an act concerning the establishment of a high performance green building standard for voluntary adoption by municipalities. This one doesn't have a number yet. I think it's potentially still in drafting, but this is to establish a stretch codes that municipalities could choose to adopt. And then finally, an act limiting eligibility for the residential solar investment program and preventing distributed energy generation solicitations from segregating large projects. And this is really aimed at ensuring that projects are incentivized at the level that they're intended to be incentivized at through the LREC-ZREC program and through the RCIP program. And with that, I think I'll open it for questions, if anybody has questions, before we move on to the next presentation.
Great. Thank you very much, Vicki. I'm going to try as best I can to channel questions from the chat, and Patrice Gillespie and Mark might join me as well. It wouldn't be a meeting of the public and deep without a question about Killingly. And I wonder if it's possible to talk just generically about roles and responsibilities, the role of deep in siting natural gas plants, the role of ISO New England, and sort of who does what to whom and why, and just in this siting process. And we're not going to relitigate Killingly, but just to understand roles and responsibilities.
Sure. So I don't have the list of what still needs to be done for siting of that particular, or permitting for that particular plant. That would be more our environmental branch of the agency, right? But I know that there are still processes underway there. What I'll say is that what DEEP is really focused on with regional market reform is looking at how it came to be that our regional markets are incentivizing natural gas and fossil fuel generation, and not the generation that the states have prioritized, not the clean generation that the states are prioritizing. And this issue goes beyond Killingly and includes all of the fossil fuel plants that we have cited in Connecticut, including some of the dirtiest plants that are still running on oil, for example. So, we're really interested in addressing this issue at the source, which is, what are the resources that we are procuring for our regional energy grid? And the state has been forced to go out to do procurements to procure clean energy because the markets are not set up to do it for us, right? They're actually set up to not procure clean energy, but they're mainly procuring fossil fuel generation, and in fact did not even sufficiently incentivize nuclear generation to remain here in Connecticut that was needed for reliability purposes. So we have a very, in my view, broken approach to how we select our generation resources in the region. And that's where we are focused on working with our neighboring states and with FERC and, at ISO New England to address that problem across the board.
Is it fair to say, and several questions have come up touching on this, that the procurement process that DEEP engages in now is a response to a broken system, a less than perfect system? If
I
the
think
system were perfect, would we still have to have a separate DEEP procurement process?
I mean, we might, it depends on the type of fix that you get, right? You know, you might not have a system that perfectly procures everything that the state wants, but having more alignment would certainly be beneficial. You know, currently the markets really aren't providing any real incentive or any, you know, significant incentive for clean energy resources to come online. So we're really doing it completely on our own right now. I'm very proud of our procurement processes. I think they're very competitive. I think we've done an amazing job of getting, you know, good pricing and really great projects online or under, you know, development. So, so it's not that, you know, that necessarily that the procurement process, that there's anything wrong with the procurement process. It's that we have to do that on our own. That there's, and we have to do that while we're paying for resources through the ISO markets that are not the resources we're prioritizing.
So there's some double costing going on. This is just a general question with the org chart, which I think everybody was grateful to see. As we in the public, and some of the public might work for utilities, some of us might be energy commissions, et cetera. What is the best way? Is there sort of a clearinghouse to contact DEEP? Do we contact you? Is there, or do we just look for dockets and so forth that we should? I guess my general question is, how does this group connect with DEEP on various issues?
It's a really good question. So people are always free to reach out to me, right? And many people do. I think that through our processes, we try to sort of advertise the best ways to, you know, file more official filings with us. And Julia can remind me maybe about, or Mike can remind me about the email address, or maybe somebody could post it in the chat. I believe it's deep.energybureau@ct.gov, but I could have that wrong. So I'll make sure that that we get that right. Sending something into that email will, if it's related to any specific work that we have going on, you know, somebody will see that and get it into the right direction. But if you have questions or you know, that kind of thing, people are free to reach out to me as well.
Great. And I suspect we're going to have a sort of an open question period afternoon after all the speakers get on deck. Mm-hmm. But there's a whole bunch of questions sort of popping up. Does DEEP have final say-so on siting a plant? I guess that's the way to put that question. Or do we have veto power in our state, or can we be overridden? So, and I think case in point would be the plant, Middletown NRG fossil fuel plant.
I think what I would say to that is, you know, there's a siting council process, and DEEP sits on the siting council, but we're, you know, one vote on the siting council. And then there are various permitting processes that follow particular rules that are in place, right? And I am not the expert on permitting at DEEP, so I don't want to say much more than that. But there are specific processes in place for specific permits that are needed. I don't think it's fair really to say that any entity has the full say about siting and permitting for any plan. I think it's fair to say that.
As the movie title goes, I think you're saying it's complicated.